just want to talk briefly, you saw that video. There's a guy on the left that I wanted to talk a little bit about today, and that's me. When I got done with course for the first time, after a tour of the state university system, I finally came on staff with FCA. And I did part-time, which is only about 50 hours a week. It goes to banana, but it's just a great time for me to produce coaches. Reach that point in my life where I'm able to do that, and there's a lot of you out there who do that too, and do it on a limited basis. So I would encourage you, to look into coaches ministry with us, and also, the main thrust they serve you as coaches. And like I said, Zoom was really a great opportunity for me. So I just want to encourage you to do that. I want to encourage you to fill out this card, it's a nice door prize. The other thing, at the National Convention on one night, we do a small coaches hub. The coaches brought that up, that they might want to do it. So if that was something you're interested in, put that on your card. We normally 40 minutes, and you still get to the bash and get up late the next morning. So with that, it's my great honor and pleasure today to introduce our guest speaker, John Stiegelmeier. I'll save his on-field accomplishments at SDSU for later today when he speaks on football. At FCA, we talk about the four. You believe in God. You believe we're separated from God by original sin. You believe we're saved by the death of His Son on the cross. And then finally, you trust Jesus. I believe if you trust Jesus, you follow His commands. You love God and love others. And to follow His commission to make disciples. I've had the opportunity to know John longer than either one of us would like to admit. And I know he loves God and loves his family at home and at SDSU. My call finally got me to my first FCA camp in the early 90s, and John was head football clinician. I stand here today because John began discipling there and continues to this day, which has changed me as a coach, a father, and a husband, and a follower of Christ. Coach Steve.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. It's an honor to be here. And they didn't tell me how long I get to talk, but I just looked at the schedule, and evidently it doesn't start, nothing really starts until 9:30, so lock those doors, please. And it's an honor to be here. I love FCA, and I want to echo what was talked about in the camp. There are a lot of special environments. There's a lot of things that we do. For me, it's to be in the car, Christian music, mind wandering. It's just kind of a safe high for me. I love music, I love Christian music. I cannot describe the environment of an FCA camp. You can't describe that. People told me being a grandparent would be whatever. They couldn't describe that, right? Being married, you can't describe that. Going to FCA camp, you can't describe that. And I'm talking to coaches and getting your athletes there. It is an impactful environment, and when I say that, for eternity. And no better investment than for eternity. But I love FCA. I get asked to speak a lot. This recently we won a national championship, and all of a sudden I know a little bit more than I did the year before. So I've been asked to speak a lot more, and ideally today it's all about our hearts and our walk with the Lord and what I call a faith journey. Let's open with a prayer, please. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for these coaches. Thank you for all coaches. Pray that my words today will be your words. I pray that we'll have hearts of good soil, and I pray that this message will connect with some. Amen. I was raised on a farm, a wheat farm, in rural South Dakota. I make the joke that I was raised by a 50-20 John Deere tractor because I spent more time in the tractor than I did with anybody. And that's the truth. And so it's part of my DNA. farming is part of my DNA. We had 3 boys in the family. My father assumed I'd be a farmer. My whole family, extended family, were farmers. And I love the farm, but I chose to be a coach. And he said, go for it. But farming is part of my, like I said, DNA. And so my roots, if you will, which is not a pun, but my way to get back to that is to be a gardener. And anytime as a head coach you say you're a gardener, people look at you kind of cross-eyed, you know. And it's all about our background, right? It's all about our upbringing, and that's impacted ideally all of us. And so today I'm going to talk about not football, not FCA, but I'm going to talk about gardening. You okay with that? Shake your head, yes, right? I taught geometry and I looked for responses rather than weird looks, and you didn't get many responses in geometry. So, and specifically, I gave this speech a number of years ago here, but I believe in my heart, I'm not going to give a different speech ever again for FCA. I'm blessed to ask. Not that this is a great speech, it isn't. A great message, it isn't. But it's from my heart. And ideally, at some point in your life, you will look back and say, I see what Coach was talking about. I see what he was talking about. And it'll be the hand of God that will allow you to do that. Specifically, I'm going to talk about gardening green beans today. And I want to take you to our garden. Hang on, you'll enjoy this talk. Not to put the pressure on me, right? I'm going to take you to our garden. I plant 2 rows of green beans. I plant right beside each other so they're efficient. I can water them with a soaker hose, and it really becomes a bean hedge, right? And if you know what green beans are, they're an aggressive plant. They get about this tall. But God screwed up, and I don't like to say that because I think I might get struck with lightning someday, but God screwed up. Because when he made green beans, he made the bean the same color as the plant. Not good, right? Not good. And so you forage through these plants. Again, you're with me in the garden, you're on your knees, you're dirty, you're sweaty. There's mosquitoes in Brookings, South Dakota. And you're looking for these green beans, and you find this clump of them, and yay, you put them in the bucket, and then you find these ones you missed 2 weeks ago, and they're about this long, you throw them away. And then there's that one that's just on the edge, and you leave it for the next time, but you probably miss it again. But invariably, you look back at your bean row, and you see beans you missed. Right? Now, why do I tell you that goofy story? Because that is a picture of our faith journey. And our faith journey is this. You decide to follow Christ, and you start taking steps, getting to know him better and better and better. And Christ will not put up a billboard and say, Coach Stieg, at 8:23 in Madison, Wisconsin, there's 3 coaches in there that need to hear what you're going to say. He's not going to say that. He's going to charge you with being faithful every day of your life. But when you look back, in my case, when I look back at my bean row, my faith journey, what do I see? I see the hand of God, that he worked through me, impacting people. And so the analogy of the bean row is simply this. It's not about missed beans, it's about your faith journey and looking back and seeing how the hand of God was part of your life and the blessings you had to be faithful. Okay, you will see lives, you will see events, and I promise you, and this may jolt you will see miracles that you were able to be part of because you were faithful in your journey as a Christian coach. And to bring this to life, I'd like to use my bean row or my faith journey and tell you some stories that I was so blessed to be part of. This is not about me. This is about a faith journey and the hand of God working with me and through me. In the early 2000s, I got a note from our athletic director, Dr. Fred Owen, and he said, come to my office. And I walked down to his office, and he had this document sitting on his desk. It's called our MAD Manual. And our mental performance coach talks about our mind has 80,000 thoughts. And you know how fast your mind works? And so I sat down, here's my MAD Manual sitting in the middle of his desk. And so I've got an ego, right? And so I thought, he loves this document, right? He wants me to do inserts for all the coaches. We're talking about college. You don't do that stuff. But I'm arrogant enough to think that. So I'm kind of pump out my chest, and he goes, "Do you do this document? Do you do this?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And he opened it up to the section we call the foundation. I won't be able to find it now. And he said, "Do you do this?" And I said, "Yes, I do, proudly." And it's things like this: when you're tempted to cheat. And the verse follows, "Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the body is weak." Matthew 26:41. And I said, "Yes, I do." He said, "If you do that again, I'm going to fire you." I just sat there. My mind went the wrong direction initially, right? And then he said, "Do you do chapels?" I said, "Yes, we do." He said, "If you do a chapel next year, I'm going to fire you." And it seemed like eternity. It was probably 10 seconds, and he said, "Do you have any questions?" Pretty crystal clear, right? And so I walked back to my office. The walk back seemed way longer than the walk down there because of what I just experienced. And I closed my door, and I was proud. I didn't slam it. And I sat in one of those reclining chairs, office chairs, and I looked up at that goofy tile stuff I had in the ceiling. I just sat there and looked at it. And I thought, holy nutmeg. I got 2 little kids, I got a dream job, I'm a head football coach, and there's a conflict. And what was the conflict? I was a Christian coach. And I just sat there. I don't know how long I sat there. I'm going to get emotional here, but I leaned forward and prayed for my AD. I said, "Lord, help him. Enter his life." And we didn't change. We didn't take out chapels. I didn't change the manual, and I didn't get fired. And I look at that time as the hand of God saying, people get shot because of their faith. People have a gun pointed at them and they say, "Are you a Christian?" And they have a choice. And they say, "Yes." You've read these stories. And they lose their life. And I was worried about my job. I needed to lean on the Lord. 4 years ago, the Title IX director at South Dakota State made an appointment with her. She came over, she sat down, she pulled my manual out of her briefcase. I thought, you don't get a manual. Where did you get a manual? Man, it stands for Make a Difference. And she goes, "You do this, right?" And then she pulled a manila envelope out, and she said, "You need to take out the faith-driven stuff in this manual. Here," and she was prepared. She said, "Here's a folder of stuff you can replace it with, kind of motivational stuff, but no spiritual." And I just sat and looked at it. Number one, I thought, how did you get a manual? And what are you talking about? And I said, "Why are you saying this, ma'am?" And she said, "You're in such a visible position at South Dakota State University. It's the biggest university, and it's a big deal." And I said, "You are risking a lawsuit." And that's her job. I had to honor that. And I sat there and I looked at her as if you're her, and I said, "Ma'am, if we take that out, South Dakota State football is not South Dakota State football as we know it." And she looked at me like she was a geometry student. Like she didn't understand what the heck I was talking about. She goes, and we just sat and looked at each other. She said, "Well, I want you to consider it." And she left. And I came back. Now, what would please me the most, what would make my life so much fuller is someday I look back at my being room, my faith journey, and I see the face of those 2 individuals. That my witness, through the strength of God, said to them, "There's something different about him. I want to search that out." Your players are looking for that. Your players need that. About 20 years ago, we had our first coaches huddle. A guy named Bob Young, who I want to grow up to be like Bob Young someday. Bob was the head football coach at the University of Sioux Falls. He just passed away in January. And just, if I talked about Bob Young, you would understand what I'm talking about. And he was on me. Bob Young was on me. He said, "You have to have coaches' devotions. You have to have a coaches' huddle." And what he understood was this. Head coaches, raise your hand. He understood the influence a head coach had on the entire program. on the assistants, the players, the trickle-down effect, the families, that video, right? The guy talking about how FCA changed his family. FCA camp changed his family. And he knew that. And he was like a bulldog. He was after me and after me. And finally I said, Bob, I give in. I'll do coach's devotion. You're doing the first one. Come up on this date. We had these old trailers beside our old stadium. I said, North trailer, 12 o'clock. I bought a bunch of these dollar cheese. They used to be dollar cheeseburgers at McDonald's. Now they're $1.69. Still on the dollar menu, right? What a deal that is. Huh? And so I threw them on the table, and the guys were looking at me. Nobody knew what we were doing. I said, "This is Bob Young. We're going to have a devotion." And he knocked it out of the park because Bob Young didn't hide the gospel. He knocked it out of the park. And as I sat there, I looked at the coaches, thinking, "How are they reacting to this?" And we got done. I hugged Bob, and Bob went south. And I went north. I went around the corner of the trailer, and there stood a guy named Brian Hook. Remember, I'm talking about my faith journey. I'm talking about my bean roll. I'm talking about your faith journey. There stands Brian Hook. And Brian had this, again, geometry look at his face, like, what was that we just talked about? And I said, "What's up, Brian?" He said, "I've never heard that." I didn't understand what he was talking about. I said, "What do you mean you've never heard that?" He said, "I've never heard anything out of the Bible." Pause. There are people around you that have never heard anything out of the Bible. Who's going to tell them? Answer that in the quiet of your heart. Who's going to tell them? So I said, "Brian, this is what we talked about. This is where it comes from. We're going to start Coach's Huddle because that old guy that just picked on me, I got to do that. You come to Coach's Huddles." And he came all the time. And he had to leave after a year because his mom, or not his mom at that point, but they had a business. He had to go home and help, so he gave up coaching. And a year later, Brian Hook called me up and said, "Coach, will you pray for my mom?" "Why is that?" "She has cancer." And I'm going to look back at my bean roll and see Brian Hook. Because of Bob Young, because of the cheeseburger, because of one day that planted a seed in a young coach's life. Then I'm going to ask you, how many around you have not heard that meaning words from the Bible? Josh Ronick is an accomplished football player from South Dakota State. He's a leading rusher. Career leading rusher. He's about this tall. He's a white guy from rural South Dakota. I'm not being racist there. He's an overachiever is what I'm saying. Rushed for 6,700 yards. But let me tell you a story about Josh Ronick. I go into his home to recruit him. It's Christmas time, it's December. They got all these because I remember eating these almond-covered pretzels saying, "Where the hell did you get? I'm tired of these pretzels," right? And Dad's in the shower. Dad's a hard-working guy. Now, I want you to be there with him. Home visit, right? Time to impress the family. You with me? Okay? So out comes Dad, t-shirt, white t-shirt, blue jeans, no socks. He didn't care about me. He's drying his hair with a shower. He's drying his hair and he says, "Let's cut through the bull and tell me what you're going to do for my son." I go, "Whoa, this is a different home visit." And so I knocked it out of the park, right? It went right over my head. I knocked it out of the park. Josh commits to us. Josh's junior year, he comes into my office and he said, "Coach, you're holding us back." It's the same guy, same family. "Coach, you're holding us back." I said, "How am I holding you back?" I didn't say it like that. I said, "How am I holding you back?" And he said, "You let us use profanity on the football field." I said, "Well, so?" He said, this is college, Coach. We're men. That's part of being a college football player. You're holding us back. He said, "Coach, we use an F word around our kitchen table at home." I thought, "No kidding," after meeting your dad, right? And I said, "Well, you know what, Josh? This isn't your kitchen table." And I maybe said this is my program 5 times in my 26 years of being the head football coach, because I don't believe that. But I said, "Josh, this is my program, and this is what we're going to do. No profanity." And he walked out. And his brother joined us later, and his brother used the F word every sentence. So I got him to say fudge instead of the F word, but I still kicked him off the field probably every day because of his language. But here's the cool story. Guess who's come back to do chapels for SDSU football the last 8 years? Josh Ronick. Now I'm going to take credit, right? I'm going to look back at my bean roll and see this guy from Tyndall, South Dakota, that's the leading rusher, but somewhere in his life a seed was planted. And that seed did not germinate right away, if you understand gardening. That seed lay dormant, and somebody watered it. Maybe they killed the weeds around it, the profanity and the bad thoughts, and all of a sudden that seed. And Josh Ronnick is an unbelievable Christian father that does chapels for SDSU football. Very proud of Josh. A number of years ago, Rob, you don't know this story. A number of years ago, we had a student coach named TJ Carlson. And TJ was on fire for football. He showed up, he's from Brookings, South Dakota, a homeboy, and he's on fire. And 2 years later, he just leaves. And being a head coach, and I didn't ask, he just left. Okay? So, go back in time. In 1989, I was an assistant at South Dakota State. Hold TJ Carlson in your mind. You guys can do that because you're coaches. You've got a lot of things going on. TJ Carlson, 1989. I said to our head coach, Wayne Hensel, Wayne, do we have chapels? I was an assistant. And Coach Hensel said, yes, but I'm not going to support it. I'm not going to be part of it. I'm not going to. And so I invited 121 guys on the football team to our first chapel in a November weekend in 1989. 8 showed up. 8 showed up. In a cold locker room, I didn't realize they turned on the heat at night. So we literally were sitting, I'll never forget this, it marked me as a person. We were sitting in the locker room on some wooden benches with our parkas on, and Father Chuck Silva from the Newman Center, the Catholic Center, gave the first chapel at South Dakota State. That marks me. 8 guys out of 129. Pre-COVID, when we went on the road 5, 6, 7 years ago, we would travel with 64 guys. We'd have 56 to 58 guys come to chapel. That's the only church those guys got in their college time. But here's the cool part. Who do you think our chaplain was? TJ Carlson. TJ Carlson left, when became ordained, came back and was a pastor, and said, I'm called to serve SDSU football, not as a student coach, but as your FCA chaplain. Now, I can't imagine how many faces he sees in his meeting, his faith journey, the number of marriages. And I'm going to take a little credit, because in 1989, we said, let's start having chapel. The hand of God saying, Stig, are you a Christian coach? You need to do some things. In the mid-2000s, I was blessed to go to what was called then, my wife and I were blessed to go to an FCA President's Weekend. You guys ever heard that term? And so we were sent to, first of all, Arizona, and then the second was in Florida. We were totally out of place. We stayed in hotels we could never afford. We didn't pay for it. We ate food we'd never seen before, fancy food. But the cool thing was, we got to sit where you're sitting, different than what's happening today. And I got to hear speakers that I'd never get close to. I got to hear musicians that you'd be in a group of thousands of people to be able to hear. I got to smell their breath. I was so close to them. Evangelists and Christian musicians. But in Florida, I heard a guy that marked me. His name was Bobby Bowden. Everybody know who Bobby Bowden is? He's still the head coach at Florida State. And Bobby talked about their program. An unbelievable presenter. But he said something that stuck with me. He said, we do coach's devotion. And again, your mind races. And I said, well, we do coach's devotions. And then he says, everyone on our staff does the devotion. We rotate around the room. And I thought, that's a novel idea. Bobby Bowden can do it, we can do it. Because I've been doing the coach's devotions. I've been the only guy that led that 2-3 times a week. So we went back and said to our staff, this is what Bobby Bowden does in Florida State, this is what South Dakota State's going to do. Everybody's going to do devotion. And I said, I want you to be in there. And I said, it doesn't have to be from the Bible. You just have to come up with a message. And I would say that 50% of our devotions have been Bible-based, and 50% of the devotions have been motivational-based, but they've sat through them. And I can say that Luke Meadows takes his family to church because of Bobby Bowden. Because he sat through coach's devotions. He had coach's devotion. And I'll prove that to you. He was coaching in Florida Atlantic and went down there. This is a rough, tough guy that never went to church. And the first thing he said to me when he picked me up, he said, that's the church we go to, Coach. You want to hear something pretty special as a head football coach? had one of your assistants in that. Josh Davis, Shannon Moore. Shannon Moore said, "Oh, we went to church Easter and Christmas." He said, "I get more out of coach's emotions than I never got out of it." And I'm not boasting. I'm saying the hand of God working through a staff. And there's a guy that sat in the back of our coach's devotions. He's the head coach right now. And he would do his devotion. It was never Bible-based. And the guy that did the devotion would pray after it. And every coach on our staff prayed, except for that guy. And I longed for the day when we'd make eye contact. And he would say, "I got it, coach." And I ran out of time. Now he's the head coach. So go way back to 35 years ago. And I went to a free FCA breakfast. And I sat at a table in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I filled out a card like this. It didn't have all this garbage on it. It had just a few things. Sorry. The person that designed this out there, he didn't have it. It had, what's your association with FCA? Never been associated with it. What's your, a couple, like 4 questions, but one of the questions was, would you be willing to work at a summer sports camp? And I was addicted to football. My religion was football. I was 31 years old, and I thought, I worked a football camp in Germany, Japan, it doesn't matter. And so I filled it out. And a month later, Mark Tiemann, who was the head of Minnesota FCA, called me up and said, "Coach Stiegelmeier, would you be willing to come to Gustavus Adolphus on these dates to work the football camp?" I didn't even let him put the question mark at the end of the question. I said, "Yes." And then he really hammered it because he said, "You bring your family." So then my mind went, okay, they can have vacation. I can work football, right? Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Don't have to go on vacation this year. We're going to Gustavus. I'll never forget driving up to Gustavus. You've been on campus, it's like a picture. You know, the grass is like you can walk on top of it. You don't sink in, it's so thick and green. We are in heaven. And then I want you to go with me now. Again, I've been to church every day as a youth with my dad. I went to church, and seriously, not every day, every Sunday. I went to church every Sunday at college. Right? I took our family to church. At this time, we had 2 kids. We eventually had 4. Took them to church every Sunday, and I had no faith. How does that happen? Because I never made the decision to commit my life to Christ. I wasn't even treading water. I wasn't in the water. And so we went to this camp, and we went to on the first meeting, and they had me fill out all these forms. And I thought, I've coached a lot of clinics or camps. Why am I filling out forms about kids being safe around me? Right? You know? As if a pervert would go to a football camp, right? FCA. Protect people. And then we went to the coaches meeting. Jim Heinitz was the head clinician in those days. I talked about me being in that role at some point. I want you to be here with me. There's about 15 of us football coaches. And Coach Heinitz says, "Let's start with prayer." And I'm going, what are you doing? And then we had a devotion. And then we planned practice. And at the end of practice, Coach Heinitz says, "How about we do the last 15 minutes team?" And in the back of my head, you are the dumbest person I've ever known. We have kids from all over the Midwest. We're going to try to line up in a defense and offense, run a play, and defend a play. But God has a plan. God has a plan. When we look back, we see the hand of God in his life. He didn't tell me, Coach Stig, you need FCA camp. FCA camp doesn't need you. He didn't tell me that. He sent me there to have my eyes open. So we did that. So I'm ready to go, right? I got my whistle, I got my visor. You know, visor without the top deal, right? And they go, let's go to chapel. I go, chapel? So I go to chapel. You meet the praise band. You meet the speaker. You hear the themes, and I'm going, I'm on the edge of my seat going, I'm a football coach. Let's go. And so we finally get out of there. We get out there, and I'm in my glory. Because this is my deal. This is my identity. When I say that, magnify that 10 times. Whatever you thought about, magnify that 10 times. Because I got everything out of the term coach. Everything. And here came those dreaded last 15 minutes. And so we went down. I was going to support Coach Heinz, so I had to be like I was excited about it. And I went into the huddle. These kids are 14, 18 years old. And you know what you're saying? You guys are public, right? Let's go back in the old days when we didn't play communist football, right? We huddled up. Remember those days? You old guys with gray hair, remember those days? Right? And you'd say, ready, break, ready, tackle, ready, hit, right? And so I go in there with that thought, and these kids go, praise the Lord, in a football. And I backed out of there, and I said out loud, where am I? Where am I? And went and stood on the sidelines for 15 minutes and didn't say a word. My mind raced. I thought, what have I missed? Who have I deceived? Where have I been? How have I hurt my family? I just raced. I raced. And that night, we put the kids to bed. My wife and I talked. She went to sleep. I crawled out of bed. I went and found a sterile dorm room in Gustavus Adolphus. Got on my knees on a tile floor, set a twin bed, and gave my life to Christ. Because of 14, 18-year-old kids at FCA game. So when Martini looks back at his bingo, way back in his faith journey, he sees this guy with a visor and a whistle and a goofy look on his face. And that's me. Because he invited me to FCA camp. And some 14 to 18-year-old kids opened my eyes to what I was missing, what I wasn't doing. And this isn't about FCA camp. It's about starting your faith journey. It's about getting on your knees and saying, Lord, I need you. I need you every day of my life. Will you walk with me? I'm a sinner. This isn't an altar call. This is a confession. A guy that didn't get it. Didn't get it at all. And so imagine all the young men you get to be around. Imagine all the students you teach. Imagine, you know what Brother Graham said, right? I don't have to say it to you. He said, people like you, with the first name Coach, will influence more people in 1 year than the normal individual will influence in a lifetime. Now, for some of us, that's exciting. And for some of us, we sit back and go, crap, dang. That's a huge responsibility. And as a Christian coach, Billy Graham wasn't talking about faith. He was talking about access. He was talking about hearts. He was talking about when a coach says jump, they jump. He was talking about the power you have. Now add Christian to that, and think about the line in heaven. This isn't the way you do it, but I want you to picture this. Think about the line in heaven of students that are going to come up to you. You won't recognize them. They were in your geometry class in 1982. I won't recognize them. But ideally, because of the hand of God, in fact, that's wrong, because I wasn't a Christian, honestly. The cool thing about that is it's not just them, it's generations, it's family trees. You're a coach. Be that guy. Be that guy. I encourage you to YouTube the song Thank You by Ray Bowles. Ray Bowles has gone in a different direction. Just YouTube the song Thank You by Ray Bowles. And you'll see a picture of what I just talked about. You'll see a picture of a guy going to heaven and people he has no idea he touched coming up and saying thank you. You have that power. You have that power. And I'm going to be a little arrogant here. You can't shuffle it off. Give that to somebody else. That's your job. That's your job. And if it doesn't make sense to you, talk to these guys at this table. All right? They'll help you out. All right? This has been an absolute honor. I've been blessed to wear the title of coach for 46 years. And it's pretty cool. God bless.